Hello and welcome back. Now, in this video we're going to continue talking about the phonetics of the language, and in particular how it was actually written down. So let's remember that the main source for our study of Tegüima is Father Lombardo's Arte de la Lengua Tegüima. And it's important to keep this in mind because we should bear in mind the linguistic backdrop of the entire book. So, we should note that Father Lombardo is writing this in Spanish, and this is an older form of Spanish, with some unconventional writing compared to today, and a few phonemic differences. We also note that Father Lombardo himself is Italian, and draws from Italian orthography, both to actually write in Tegüima and to describe what it is that he means when he writes certain letters. In regards to the document itself, we have essentially two sources for this text. On the one hand, we have the printed text, but we also have the handwritten final draft that was sent off to be printed. Now, this final draft appears to have been made by Father Lombardo's own hand upon comparing it with some other documents that we know to be his. And it's important to know that we're drawing from these two because there are some sections of both of those documents which can be more clearly understood in light of the other text. So, for example, we might see some missing diacritics or an unusual spelling of a word, or in some cases examples were flipped around and paragraphs were sometimes just moved around in entire sections. And the main source that we're going to be studying from is the printed text, simply because of its legibility and the convenience of using this. But we will also look to the handwritten text when there are some ambiguities. Now, moving on to the actual phonetics, we're going to start with the letter G. There's a few discrepancies to note here. Firstly, the G in Spanish represents three phonemes: G as in general, G or G as in ganar, Gua or Gua as in guardar. So the letter in Tegüima appears to represent two phonemes. We have G as in go. Now the second phoneme is somewhat difficult to pinpoint. It's either gua or gua or wa. So we have the word niguai or niguai or niwai, which means to speak. And it's difficult to tell exactly which sound this is. What is very clear is that it is a sound made with pursed lips. So how would we go about identifying this sound? Well, we can look at the linguistic family of the language. So Proto-Uto-Aztecan has a qua phoneme, which is preserved as qua in the Nahuatl, but it becomes bois in the Cayetan languages. Now, when I speak about the Cayetan languages, this includes Mayo and Yaqui, and the various dialects that are today considered part of Mayo. Some people consider this all one language with simply a degree of variation that we call a dialect continuum. Nonetheless, this qua becomes bois in Gaita. So we have the word gua, which means to eat, which comes to us in Nahuatl, in tlaqua. That tla is not part of the root, it is a suffix which is added. And we have in the Gaitan language is Bwa'e. So you have Tlaqua and Bwa'e. And the word Cuica, which means to sing, comes to us in Nahuatl as Cuica and in Gaita as Buica. Now, the Tegüima word for to eat is spelled G-U-A. What is this exactly? Well, the immediate answer could be that it's Gua. It's very easy to look at the Kwa from Proto-Uto II and say, this was lenited, this was voiced, and it became Gua. So we'd have Gua and Guic. However, this becomes a little confusing when we look at another Opatan language, namely Eudeve, where this phoneme is realized as B. So for to eat, we have Ba, or Ba'a, and to sing, we have Bika, sometimes with a T at the end and sometimes without. Now, it seems, looking at both of these and considering the ambiguities that we have in Tegüima, that it might be more likely that both Gaita and Opata turn that Kwa into Bwa, and that this Bwa became in Tegüima Wa, while in Eudeve it became Ba. That is to say, that Tegüima lost the plosive aspect of this sound, whereas Eudeve lost that pursed lip quality. This may be because both Gaita and Opata came from the same language, or it may be an areal feature, so there was kind of a general shift in pronunciation for the entire geographical range, whereby simultaneously Gaita and Opata changed this Bwa into Wa and Ba. Or rather that both of these changed Kwa into Bwa. We have a few more examples here, and we can see that there seems to be a different origin as well of a Wa sound in Tegüima. So we have the Wa, which corresponds to Proto-Uto Kwa in Gua and in Guic. But we also have a Wa which appears to be Wa from Proto-Uto II. So we have the word Tewica in Tegüima, which is Tevica or Tewica in Eudeve. In older Gaita, we have Tehueca. In modern Hyaki, this is pronounced Teca, but the pronunciation is preserved in the more poetic register of the language, and it is also recorded in the grammars. And we have the Nahuatl word Ilhuicac. All of these have a Wa sound. Tewica, Tevica or Tewica, Tehueca, and Ilhuicac. We also have the word to fall, which in Tegüima is wech, Eudeve veche or weche, Gaita weche, Nahuatl wetzi. We have the word grease, which in Tegüima is huida or huia. Sometimes it appears with a D, sometimes without. In Gaita we have awira, And in Nahuatl, we have Chiahuizotl or Chiahuistli. In this case, the Eudeva word Tuspewa appears to be from a different root. Nonetheless, we can see this Huida or Huilla being preserved in Tegüima, in Gaita, and in Nahuatl. We also have the suffix wa, which is a postposition in Tegüima and in Gaita, which means towards or to, and it's pronounced the same in Tegüima and in Gaita. Moving on to the letter U. Firstly, in these days, the letter U and the letter V are merged. There's no difference between one or the other. Whether your V/U has a point at the bottom or if it's rounded at the bottom is a matter of handwriting and does not convey actual information about the letter. Nonetheless, we know that Lombardo is using these two letters to represent two different sounds. And he informs us that he will use two dots over this letter to represent the vowel U, while he will write the consonant V without dots. So, for example, he gives us the verbs vi, which means to stay, and ui, which means to take or to bring. He also informs us that when he writes the same letter 3 times, it is the one in the middle which is pronounced as a vowel, while the other 2 are pronounced as consonants. So we have the word revuvai, which means to spin around air or to fan something, right? One of the other ways we can make sure that we're actually talking about a consonant V is when the same word is spelled with a B. So sometimes in a different document or in a different part of the arte, we'll see the same thing spelled 2 different ways. That's the case, for example, with the past tense marker ve or be, right? We know it's not pronounced ue because apart from the clues that Lombardo gives us with how to pronounce it at the beginning of the book, we also see that sometimes he spells this with a B, leaving no ambiguity as to whether it's a consonant or a vowel. Moving on, we have the letter S. So firstly, we should note that in these days, the letter S has 2 versions. We have what we call a normal S today, and we have what's called the long S. Now, the long S looks like an F, but unlike an F, there's no dash which goes through it. And the long S is usually used in the middle and sometimes at the beginning of a word, while the short S is reserved for the end of a word, sometimes the beginning. And the capital S looks like what we identify as a normal capital S. We also have the digraphs. For example, there's this digraph on the screen between the long S and the short S. And this digraph is still used in modern German today. But when you see this, it's simply 2 S's that are put together. Now we can see here in the printed and the handwritten arte, and we can identify which of these are S's and which are F's. It's difficult in the beginning, but one quickly learns to identify which is which, and it's much easier in the case of Lombardo's handwriting to identify the S's from the F's in his handwriting than it is in the printed edition. Nonetheless, you can quite easily see it once you get used to reading these kinds of documents. We also see here another digraph between the S and the T in the printed document, where there's no such digraph in the handwritten. But we will see other cases where the long S is connected to a T, to an S, to a C, and to a few other letters sometimes, but that's mainly where it ends up fused to the following letter. The S also has two sounds, and Lombardo explains it as though it were Italian. And he tells us that when he writes the one S between two vowels, it should be pronounced za, as in the Italian word casa. And that when he writes two S's next to each other, that this pronounces the S sound. So, for example, we have in Italian passare. Now, Father Lombardo does not indicate whether or not this S should ever be geminated, but this seems to be a limitation of the kind of orthography that Father Lombardo decided to use, that he could not distinguish between geminated and single S's and Z's. We have the word hiosi, which means to write, and we have the word usi, which means children. Now, those of you who have studied Hiaki or Mayo, this is not usi child, this is actually usi children. There is, in fact, a different singular word for child. We also have this interesting case of the word diosa. It would be very unusual for the word to actually be pronounced diosa, as it should be according to the given orthography. But it seems that Father Lombardo probably simply chose to spell it with one S so that it would match closer to the original word in Spanish that diosa was loaned from. Moving on to the affricates. Obata appears to have 3 affricates. We have tsa, as in tsapa, which means to wash oneself with mud. I don't know what kind of mud exactly this was, but this is the definition that Lombardo gives us. And we have dza, as in zappa. And we have ch, as in chini. And those mean hoe and cotton, respectively. Now, the letter Z is a little confusing for us English and Spanish speakers, but Father Lombardo has already established that he will sound out Z with a singular S. And when he describes his use of the Z, he gives us examples of when Z is contrasted with TZ, not when it's contrasted with S or some other character. So it seems that it is used as in a similar way to how it is used in Italian, right? And as an affricate, like tsa, and he says it is softer, and this seems to indicate that it is a voiced affricate as opposed to a non-voiced affricate. So we have the singular S when it's between vowels representing Z. We have a double S or S in other cases being used as S. We also have the affricates Ts with a TZ and Z with a Z. And we have the CH making the same ch sound that it makes in both English and Spanish. And on that note, we also have the sh sound, the English SH, which is spelled with either an X or sometimes with an SC. We have, for example, the word shunu, which means corn. Please note that the ts and ch are sometimes swapped within the document, within different documents. So there seems to be some allophony of some kind in this case, but it would require further study to identify if this is an aerial feature or if something else is going on. But it appears that ts and ch are somewhat interchangeable in different positions. So we have the perfect suffix cia, which is sometimes rendered chia. Moving on, Father Lombardo gives us the digraph th, and he explains that it is the same sound as in the Greek theta. So he gives us the words thui, which means to speak, and tui, which means to sow. Now, this sound is not used in Latin American Spanish or in Spanish from southern Spain. But in northern Spain, this sound is represented with the letter Z and the letter C between an E or an I. Nonetheless, he decides to tell us it's pronounced the same way as the Greek theta, so we know that it's thui. This is the soft th sound that we have in English words such as thought or through. In addition to the th, Lombardo gives us the digraph rh, and he gives us the words romoi and romoi. And he explains to us that the rh should be pronounced just as the Greek letter rho, which is essentially a breathy, unvoiced R. So we have romoi, lame or crippled, and we have romoi, which means robust. Moving on, the H has the same sound as it does in English. So we have the word hidawa, which means life or soul or some other things, right? It's kind of an abstract concept. But unlike in English, the letter H is also pronounced at the ends of words. So we have the word vih, which means tobacco, and wah, which means farmland. This may be somewhat tricky to get used to. So we're going to go through some example phrases to practice pronouncing the language and to learn some phrases and some vocabulary. So we're going to start with the greetings. Now there's a difference between when you greet one person and when you greet many. And the way to greet one person, we have 3 different phrases that we can use. And the first one is this. We can say, He Aima. He Aima. And we can say also, Ikeda. 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 And lastly, to greet one person, we can say hakona. Hakona. Note that the C is written twice, so it's geminated. That is to say, it's pronounced twice as long. It's doubled. It's not hakona, but rather hakona. Hakona. So that's all how to say hi or hello to one person. And to greet multiple people, we change them a little. So the first one we have he aivu. He aivu. He aivu. And we can also say ikedavu. 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 Or we can shorten this a little more and say ikevu. 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 And the last one here to note is hakonavu. 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 Note that the accent did change a little, right? As opposed to hakona, it becomes hakonavu, right? And we can see this because of the diacritics. Now to say what's up or how's it going, we can say haimavera. 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 There's another similar phrase, which is, what do you say? Or what do you think? And this is pronounced awe. Awe. Note that it's not pronounced awe, because awe carries a different meaning to it. But when we want to say, what do you say? Or what do you think? It's pronounced awe. Awe. Now we can move on to some a bit longer phrases, right? So haita means what, and I means he, she, or it, right? He, she, or it, it's all I. And then we have the verb uide. Remember that when the U has the two dots over it, it's to be pronounced as the vowel U. So not vide, but uide. Haitai uide. Haitai uide. Haita, what? He, she, or it is I, and uide is carries. Haitai uide. What is he carrying? What is she carrying? Haitai uide. Haitai uide. Haitai uide. And we can respond to this in a bit of a peculiar way, right? We can say, Hai tawe. Hai tawe. So haita again means what? And awe, in this case, is used as, I don't know. So one person asks, Hai tai uide. What is he carrying? Hai tawe. What? I don't know. What's he carrying? What it is? I don't know. Hai tai uide. Hai tawe. Haiko means when, and ma is you. It's the singular you. And hyo means to write. So to say, when are you writing? When do you write? We can say, Haiko ma hyo. When do you write? Haiko ma hyo. And we can say we can respond to this, Veutatsi ne hyo. Veutatsi ne hyo. And veutatsi means today. Ne is I, and hyo is to write. There's another way to say today, which is idatsi tatsi. Idatsi tatsi ne hyo. Today I write. So, haiko ma hyo. When do you write? Veu tatsi ne hyo. Or idatsi tatsi ne hyo. Today I'm writing. Today I write. And we can also reply in the future. So tomorrow is chia, right? So we can say chia ne hyozea. Chia ne hyozea. Chia ne hyozea. Now chia is tomorrow. Ne again is I. And hyozea is will write. Note that the accent gets changed to the end, right? So hyo, the accent is obviously on that one syllable, right? But in the word hyozea, that suffix actually takes on a long vowel, and it eliminates the accents on the actual root word, right? So we can say chia ne hyozea, and say the day after tomorrow, right? Overmorrow. We can say wanuri. So I'll write the day after tomorrow, or I'll write overmorrow. We can say wanuri ne hyozea. Wanuri ne hyozea. Now to talk in the past, we change two things again. So tuk means yesterday. Tuk, right? And to say I wrote in the past, it's not hyo, but hyozia. Hyozia. Notice the difference between hyozea, the future, and hyozia, the past. In hyozea, that suffix takes on the accent, right? It's long. But in hyozia, the accent stays on that o. There's no change that happens there. So, tuk ne hyozia. Yesterday I wrote. Tuk ne hyozia. And we can also say, wanu ne hyozia. Wanu ne hyozia, which is the day before yesterday, right? 2 days ago. Wanu ne hyozia. Wanu ne hyozia. You have some other phrases here, right? But there's something to note about nouns in this language, which is that the nouns do not change between singular and plural, right? So in English and in Spanish, we note the difference between a dog and some dogs, right? And so dog is one, but dogs is multiple. It's more than one. Whereas in Tegüima, cheetah can mean dog or dogs. There's no difference. How do you say dog? It's cheetah. How do you say dogs? It's cheetah. And the same thing with the possessive pronouns. The possessive pronouns also don't change. In English, they don't change, but in Spanish, they do. But in Tegüima, they act as in English. My is my, whether I have multiple or one. So we make a distinction between singulars and plurals in a different way with some verbs. So some verbs change between singular and plural forms. So the word to be, or to be somewhere, rather, is kak. And in the plural form, it's ho. Conveniently, the English equivalent acts in a similar way, because we can say, where is my dog? We can say, haku no chita kak. And that kak means is, right? But in the plural form, we change it to ho, which means are. So, Haku no chita kak. Where is my dog? Aku, where? No my chita kak. Right? Aku no chita kak. Where my dog is. But to say, where are my dogs? We say, Haku no chita ho. Haku, where? No chita, my dogs. Ho. Are. Where are my dogs? Sometimes this word aku is written with or without an H at the beginning. So it can be aku or haku. Now, to respond to the question, we can go through a few different ways. So, iwati or iwe means here. I, again, means he, she, or it. And gak is. Is, am, or you singular, are, right? So we can say, iwati gak. Iwati gak. Here he is, or here she is. Iwe hikak. Iwe hikak. Here he is. Here she is. To say in the past tense was, this gak becomes gachia. So we can say, iwati gachia. Iwati gachia. Here he was. He was right here. Iwe gachia. Iwati gachia. To change it to the plural, we have to change two things. So we do have to change the verb from is to are, right? So we change that gak for ho. But we also have to change that pronoun. So I means he, she, or it. And me means they. So we can respond, iwati me ho. Here they are. Iwe me ho. Here they are. And to change this to the past tense, we change the ho to hoya. Iwati me hoya. They were here. Iwati me hoya. Iwe me hoya. They were here. Iwe me hoya. Aku no chita kak. Iwati kak. Aku no chita ho. Iwe me hoya. Now this next word, let's see if you remember something about that U and that V. There's no difference between a U and a V. It doesn't matter if it's pointed or rounded at the bottom. But how are we going to pronounce this? Should we pronounce it vue or uve? Now, we know that it's supposed to be pronounced uve. Firstly, once one begins reading the books, one eventually gets used to noticing when something is supposed to be a V or a U. And we know that this kind of ue sound doesn't really occur in the language. So it should be ve rather than ue. But secondly, we also can check other sources and the dictionary. And in one of the manuscript dictionaries that we have, in one of these manuscript vocabularies, we can see that this word here is spelled U-B-E, which is a slightly variant way of writing U-V-E, right? So ube, uve, not vue, right? So we can say uve hikak. Uve hikak. Here he is. Here it is. Uveta hikak. Here it is. And we can say uve meho. Uve meho. Here they are. Uve Gachia. Here he was. He was here. Uve Gachia. Uveta mehoya. They were here. Akunochita ho. Where's my dogs? Uveta mehoya. They were here. Or rather, uve and uveta means right there where you are. It's there, right? So iwe or iwati means here, and uve or uveta means there where you are. Uve gachia. He was right there. Uveta igachia. He was right there. Uve meho. They are right there. Uveta mehoya. They were right there where you are. Now the other word that we can learn here is awati. And iwati means over there, over yonder, right? So awati kak. It was over there. It was over yonder. Awati kak. Awati gachia. It was over there. Iwati kak. He's over there. Awati meho. They are over there. Awati mehoya. They were over there. Hakuno chitakak. Iwe kak. Hakuno chitakak. Iwe igachia. Hakuno chitaho. Iwe meho. Akuno chitaho. Iwati mehoya. Akuno chitakak. Uvehikak. Akuno chitaho. Uveta mehoya. Right. So we can learn these different ways of saying, here he was, here he is, there he was, there he is, there they are, right? And we can practice with all these. And with that, we'll conclude our lesson for today. I send my greetings and thanks to all the people who helped with this study, and to all of you who have shown interest in the study of the Yoruban languages, in particular Tegüima, which we've dedicated this video to. And so with that, I say to you all, Kamari dave tamotavitsea. We'll meet again soon.